Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for the Westfield Matildas pre-match press conference. Australia will take on Denmark Australian time on the 11th of June at 2 o'clock a.m. For the press conference, we've got Westfield Matildas head coach Tony Gustafsson. Tony, we'll kick it off with how have preparations been going ahead of the match against Denmark?
Well, hi everyone. It's been really good preparation so far. The setup is really good. Everything from hotel to the quality of the pitch to training content. We've been able to cover a lot. We've been focusing on getting everyone on the same page as soon as possible. Coming from clubland into country, it's getting everyone to see the same thing. So we've been focusing a lot on 11v11 to get the holistic perspective and get the cohesion of the group as soon as possible in place. And then I have to say, from a personal standpoint, it's been fantastic to meet some of these faces. It's actually the first time for me. 11 players being here is the first time I meet them in person. So that itself has been amazing.
Jackson.
Yeah, Tony, you mentioned the new players coming in. Can we expect a lot of changes from your last lineup going into this Denmark game? Are you going to throw a lot of the girls who've come into camp for the first time into those games?
Well, if you look at the roster, there are a lot of changes in the roster, so that itself is going to make it natural that we will see a lot of changes in this lineup. The lineup is obviously, we have a training this morning that's going to dictate the lineup as well, because we still have some content to do before I make the final decisions. But what I can say, it's the lineup is based on two things. One, we don't have that many minutes and games to prepare for this Olympics with this group, a new coach, new players, and so forth. So we need to try to find that cohesions and connections as soon as possible. But the other piece is, when prepping for a tournament, player availability is also key. And as you all know, we have some players coming back from surgery and less playing time and so forth. So we need to manage and put this puzzle together in a way that we also protect the players so that they are available for selection come Olympics. Yes, they need game times. Yes, we need to play together, but we also need to be mindful. So our SSM team here, Sport Science and Sport Medicine, is a big part of my job here, to get the recommendation of how many minutes do we need to play a player, should we protect the player, and so forth. So the lineup is going to be dictated in a lot of those things. One, we need minutes together. Two, we need to protect players and have a plan for them to peak physically come Olympics.
Samantha Lewis.
Thanks, Sam. Just bouncing off that answer, Tony, does that suggest that both or either of these games will see the starting 11 that you hope to field during the Olympics? Because this is pretty much the strongest Matildas squad that you've finally got in camp. These are the players that we can expect to see competing at the games.
I'm going to answer a little bit different on that one, because I think that's an interesting question. I think in football in general, there's a lot of emphasis and focus on a starting lineup. If you look at statistics, especially from tournaments, you can see what happens the last 30 minutes and the last 15 minutes. I think maybe not enough do we coaches emphasize the finisher, not just the starter, but the finishing 11. So for me, it's not a starting 11 and then subs. We don't even use subs, by the way. We use the word game changers, people that comes off the bench actually change the game. And numbers-wise, yes, 16 outfield players in the Olympics. You can't have 6 starters and then, 10 starters and 6 subs. You need to have 16 starters. Everyone counts. So are you going to see players that I think potentially are going to contribute in the Olympics? Yes. Does it mean it's going to be a starting player or a non-starting player? No, because we're not going to work that way and prepare that way, especially because we have only 2 days rest in between each game in the Olympics. And we need to have fresh legs on the games. So what I'm looking at now is to see, where's the chemistry between players? What can the right side look like? What can the left side look like? The backline chemistry, working with the goalkeeper, front three, and so forth. But also looking at which player can cover multiple positions, because we need to have some players with multiple function that can play multiple positions in this Olympic roster.
Joey Lynch.
Thanks, Anne, and hi, Tony. Hope you're well. Just to bounce off the end of your answer there, you talked about players playing multiple positions, and you said some players that can play multiple positions. So are you more looking at your 18-player squad as you're going to have a collection, maybe a few utilities, or are you telling the squad that you all need to be, well, all 16 of your outfielders need to be able to play multiple positions?
No, more the first one, because there are some players that are these players with specific skill set that shouldn't have to care about playing 2 or 3 different positions, that should just focus on being them and being their key skills. And then around those players, you have to have a few multifunctional players that can step in and play in more roles. Good question.
Kieran Yap.
Hi, Tony. Are the new players coming in from the W League, have they been chosen to fit a tactical aim, or have they just been the best players at the Talent ID camp?
This is also an interesting question. I've said to the players in the very, very first meeting back in winter time in January when we had the video conference, I said, from a national team perspective, at least that's my view, you need to build a team off of the qualities of the players that you have. I'm not a coach that comes in and say, hey, here's Tony's playbook, and either the player fits into my playbook or not. I look at it opposite, meaning who are the best players and what skill sets do they have, and how can I build tactics and formations based on their core qualities. There are some core values in this team way before I arrived here, with, you know, in terms of taking a step forward, being aggressive, being attacking minded. I do think maybe that Football Australia choose me to be a coach because they know I'm the same as a person. I am very, you know, aggressive in defending, taking a step forward, very attacking minded. So in that sense, the principles and the DNA of who we are is going to stay. The formation itself is not identity to me, whether it's a 4-4-2, 4-3-3, 3-4-3, 5-3-2. You know, the system and formation itself is not the DNA of a team. It's the principles and how we play. So a long answer to that question is these players that are here from the W League is based on what they have performed, not that they're going to fit in some role or system that I've created. It's because they are the players that have performed really, really good. I need to see those players in this environment to see if they can take that step from club to country at international level.
Right, it's open.
I might just jump in again. Obviously, the results in the April friendlies were not what you would have wanted. It wasn't so much about that, but it's does it become a results thing in these 2 games, or is it more about seeing players and seeing processes and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, let's be very honest here. From my perspective, it's preparing for the Olympics. So the result itself for that isolated game is not the most important, but every time we step on the field, we want to win. That's just who we are as coaches, as players. What can happen if we don't win, let's say we get another big knock, and another big knock is that the pressure and the waves of negativity and maybe the lack of belief from people around could affect us going into the Olympics. But the result itself doesn't really matter in that sense, other than that type of waves that we're talking about. Me personally, I want to make sure that every time we step on the field, we are wearing that crest, wanting to play our best. And that's the only thing we can control. And I think most of you know what I said after that Germany game. We didn't just lose the game, we lost a little bit of our identity in terms of being that hardworking team, and that I saw more of that leading into that Holland game, and that's what I want to see going into these 2 games. I want to see players committed to give it 100 in every aspect, whether that's 1v1 duel, not hiding for the ball, wanting the ball, being brave on the ball, taking runs off the ball, and so forth. That's what I want to see, and hopefully that will largen our chances to actually get a good result as well.
Sorry, everyone, we've just had Marco join, so I'll just let him ask Tony a question. Thanks for joining, Marco.
I guess these 2 games, in terms of what happened last month with your previous 2 games, are you will these 2 games be in terms of players? Would you be looking at a lot of players, or have you sort of settled on what your best 11 is now already?
Yeah, I touched upon it earlier, but what I would say in a short answer to that is we need to balance 2 things here. One, to get cohesion of a core group of players that we think is going to be part of that Olympic roster, but also we need to be mindful of some players coming back from some injury, surgery, playing time, so that we're mindful of them and protect them as well. So those are 2 processes. The other thing I'd like to say is it's not just going to be that one starting 11 going into Olympics. It's going to be 18 players, and I need every single one of them, because with only 2 games in between, or 2 days in between each game, we might see changes both in the starting lineup and also during games. With the humidity and the tough schedule, we need to have players being available to be starters, not just 10 starters and 6 subs. It's actually starters. Everyone counts in the Olympics.
Thank you.
3 more questions.
just jump in. Tony, one of the more, I guess, surprising inclusions in the squad this time round was Caitlin Cooper. I don't think a lot of people expected that kind of call-up, considering she's sort of been on the fringes of the Matildas for a really long time. Could you, I just speak to her inclusion? What was it about her season and about her character that attracted you to bring her in?
A great question. First of all, I want to be very clear on what I said earlier. Let's be passionate about both the young future play that comes up, but also the one that can extend their career. And for me, age is not a thing in the national team. You pick the players that you think can contribute the most, you know, so be excited about that. And I'm really excited that she gets this chance because I think she deserves it. As you know, we've been scouting every single game and we have had camps as well in Australia, and she had performed really well. She has been really good on the ball. Her decision making has been really good on the ball, and she doesn't hesitate to get in to put that tackle in there, and she's smart as a player. Now, like I said, her together with some other players playing in that W League and also here in Europe, it's can they bring that performance from clubland into the international level? And I think the players that are brought in deserves to prove in that, to see if they can do it. Some will, some won't. Some will do it now in the short term. Some will do it come World Cup 23. But we need to give these players a chance. And also to show everyone out there, you know what? If you perform, you're welcome into Matildas, no matter the age.
Great. Sorry, just one more question as well. One of the sort of weaknesses, I suppose, of the Matildas, weirdly, in the last two friendlies was that Sam Kerr was quite heavily marked out of the game. I suppose that's what happens when you become one of the best players in the world. How are you trying to address that? Because that's obviously going to be something that the Matildas need to deal with over the next few years. Is it just a matter of trying to make the players around her better? What are you thinking about in terms of that?
I've spent a lot of time on exactly this. You're spot on. Sam is going to get a lot of attention defensively. They're going to double up on her. They're going to screen her in front, from behind. They're going to play physical on her and so forth. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think really I as a coach managed to activate her the way I wanted in the last camp. And it's also me getting to understand the team better and where we're at. A lot of new faces, some new tactics, you know, so forth. So we did spend a lot of time between the last camp and this camp to see, okay, how can we get the most out of Sam Kerr? And you might see some changes coming up in these games and see how that works. We'll be looking at some things in training now to make sure we have some players closer to her to operate around her and have some better off-ball movement to create spaces. And by the way, that's something Sam is brilliant on, create space for herself. So even if they're going to mark her, it's going to be a tough job because she's really, really good in that off-ball movement. But then have players around her with that off-ball movement as well. But I think the number one key here is to get everyone on the same page, to get the understanding of each other and get on the same page, to see the same things. I think that's the number one thing, to get that cohesion between the players.
Final question.
Tony, I just wanted to ask, you've talked a lot about building chemistry and camaraderie amongst the team. Now, ostensibly for your players, that probably won't be too hard. There's a lot of continuity in the squad. They're all Australian. But for you yourself, obviously you're coming in, a lot of experience in Scandinavia and America, not so much dealing with Aussie players. What lessons have you taken from your months in charge of the team in terms of fitting into that culture? And have you learnt anything that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, I first of all, I love this part of it, the leadership and the connection to people. You know, first and foremost, I work with people, and second with players. And I've had the privilege over these 20 years to work with a lot of different players from a lot of different nations, both on the men's and the women's side. Everything from Africa to South America to North America to Europe to Asia and so forth. So I work with a lot of different culture and different people, and that's what I love in the leadership. What I can say is, and I said this after the April camp, I'm amazed and so inspired both by the staff and the players about the culture here. The work ethic is phenomenal, the sense of humor I love, and then just the commitment to always want to get better. You can sense it as a coach coming into this environment. All the staff members, all the players just thrive. Every day there's feedback, you know, what can I do better? Can I do this better? You know, what can we do? And we have a quote that Mel have introduced our assistant, you know, lifters and shifters. You know, how can we lift and shift to make us better every day? So for me, it's been a privilege. I'm so happy to be a part of this team and this culture.